Welcome to Down to Earth Astrology and Primal Wellness. This is Miss Jenny, and I am your astrologer. This is the November report for November 2023. This is going to be a very brief horoscope overview. Okay, so first thing, I want you guys to start circling your calendars right now. These are the high points of the month. I want you to keep an eye on them. The first is going to be November 5th and 6th. Now, Saturn will station direct. It will turn around and go direct finally on November 4th, but the effects of this Saturn station direct and all the muck it's pulling up with it, I would expect to see around November 5th and 6th. So circle those dates on your calendars and be aware that you should be treading lightly on those days, especially with people who may or may not be, whether you realize it or not, on a tightrope right now with issues in their lives. So if you can imagine, right, because this is the energy that we're dealing with at this particular moment in time with Saturn changing directions, this particular time when Saturn's changing directions. So imagine that you've got a really long wire that everybody's kind of like, walking carefully across, right? And there's just a little bit of slack in it, but not so much. So it's tight enough that you can carefully walk across it. Now imagine if somebody pops, like pops, and really tightens that wire suddenly without warning. Well, what do you suppose happens to all those people that were walking across? Well, what happens? It throws people off, right? So this is the kind of energy that we're dealing with around the 5th and the 6th as a result of this Saturn station. So there are people who may be very well walking on tightropes or high wires right now, doing some really careful balancing acts that you don't know about because they're not telling anybody. They may find themselves getting thrown for a loop when Saturn changes directions and pulls that wire tight, like as tight as it's going to get. So it may throw some people off. Could be you. I don't know. If you're wondering how this applies to you, obviously, if you know your chart and you know your time of birth, you're going to look at the house that Saturn sits in your chart. This is when you're going to feel a sudden 180-degree turn or about face, a real shift in momentum and direction as things get loosened, as it were, and thrust forward, kind of like a slingshot, right? Like a slingshot being let loose. If you don't know your time of birth, it's okay. What you're going to do is you're going to look for any planets that you have in Pisces, Virgo, Gemini or Sagittarius in those early degrees, anywhere from 0 to 4 degrees, right? If you have planets in the previous sign, which would be Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, Scorpio in the very, very late degrees, you may also be feeling the effects of this Saturn station. But with that, I would use literally the last 2 degrees of those signs. So if you have planets in the last 2 degrees, meaning 28 and 29 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, or Leo, Aquarius. So you may be feeling the effects of this Saturn as well. So you don't need the houses if you just know the planets. And again, whatever that planet represents in your life is going to indicate where Saturn's really hitting the release torpedoes kind of button. So all sorts of things are going to get thrust forward with very little warning. Could be good, could be bad. I suppose it depends on what you've got going on in your chart. But also to remember, because this has been the Saturn and Pisces theme, karmic retribution is at hand. So everything that we're going through is, even no matter how unpleasant it is there to help us become better versions of ourselves. Somehow, some way, this is supposed to strengthen, fortify, and improve us, or give us the opportunity to improve ourselves, right? Because we always have choice. We always choose to not be a better person. So there's going to be a lot of that. So keep that in mind as we're dealing with stuff, and don't panic. Oh, Lord knows we've got enough reasons to panic. Don't panic about this. Okay. The other date I want you to circle on your calendars is going to be the end of the month, around the 27th. Now, November 27th, we're carrying a full moon at 4 Gemini, which is going to set up a T-square to this Saturn. It's going to be a very, very important time. And I mean important in terms of critical. And also, too, with this T-square, with this full moon T-square with Saturn at the end of the month, around the 27th, what I'm looking for is a sense of judgment and finality, right? So judgment, like literal or symbolic, is going to be a very, very important thing. And also getting it right. So judgments that are handed down, judgments that are made, decisions that are made based on judgments, all that sort of stuff has to be done to the letter of what is correct and right. If it is not, if your actions and your decisions, as well as other people's, is not done to the letter of the law, spiritual law or man's law, and it's not done right, correctly, there will be heavy, heavy consequences and penalties to pay, which should be immediate, which should be almost immediate. So keep that in mind as you move through your daily activities, and also understand that in the big meta picture, this is what we should be seeing. Now, I want you to keep an eye on Saturn is a big player this month. You wouldn't know it. Because what we want to do is we want to keep our eye on Uranus, which is in a Saturn decan this month. Now, Uranus is getting hammered left, right, and center with all these Scorpio planets. And the Scorpio-Taurus combination with, what is it, Mercury, Mars, not Venus, Sun, Mercury, Mars, masculine planets in the sign of power, raw power, use, abuse, acquisition, procurement, power, Scorpio. In opposition to Uranus, which is the great leveler, right? So Uranus shakes up the party because it just puts it all out there. So we can expect to see this feeling of power struggling, kind of moving through our lives at various levels. The most important thing is that this is very much about the truth bringer. The people who are going to be the hardest hit with this energy this month, because of all the Saturn, Uranus, Scorpio things happening, are going to be the people with the most secrets to hide. So if you're operating with integrity, and you're living your life as best you know how, right? And in ways that serve a purpose that's not taking advantage of other people, you should be okay. But for everybody else, this is not your month. I'm telling you, this is not your month. So let's keep an eye on that and see how that washes out, right? Now, with the Scorpio-Taurus emphasis all month long, and we're feeling it all month long, it's not until close to the 23rd when the sun changes signs that we finally start moving out of and away from this heavy-handed Scorpio stuff. Mars will be in its own sign of Scorpio until the 25th. So even though the other two planets, Mercury and Sun, Mercury, Mars, right, even though Sun and Mercury will have moved out of Scorpio before the 25th, Mars lingers, the malingerer. Mars lingers in the sign of Scorpio until the 25th. It's really slow to move out of there. And Mars, any planet in its own rulership, is going to have a lot more strength. So Mars is still carrying a lot of weight as far as the energy patterns and things that we're swimming in this month. So with that said, the Scorpio-Taurus power, and retribution, this sort of theme and energy is going to be very, very strong all month long. So we should all endeavor to maybe be kinder, nicer people and try to err on the side of the right way, right? The compassionate way. Which also I just want to say, as far as retribution goes, anybody who's quick to use the word retribution this month may find that they are the ones on the receiving end of it. So if your heart is full of hate and anger, blistering anger, right? You might want to cool your jets and maybe take a step back, because as long as you are operating with a hot, hateful heart, I promise you, you're not making the best decisions. And for the other nitwits that are like thoughts and prayers while they burn the house down, we know who they are. Oh, thoughts and prayers. This will not be, the hypocrisy will be laid out bare and unforgivingly this month as well. So this is definitely a time of retribution, but maybe retribution for the people who need it the most. They have been getting away with these games for a long time. So that's it. I mean, it's, I would love to tell you that it's all going to be daffodils and daisies next month. But, we got some work to do. Now, the upside, if this is of any interest to you, the upside through the month of November is, one, for those of you who are dating and mating in the singles game, looking for love, all this sort of stuff, or, looking for, fun and happy times. This is going to be a very, very sexy month. Probably because most of us are scared witless right now that we're going to end up in World War III. So we're all, instinctively wanting to mate and procreate before we die. And the whole species goes extinct. Maybe it's just stress relief. I don't know. But this is going to be a very, very sexy time. So people are going to want to get close and get deep. And not in the superficial sense. This is going to be a time when people really want to feel deeply connected to another person. So for those of you who are looking for meaningful relationships, this is the time to consider your applicants, because this may be one of the few times in life where they're really, really starting to get honest with themselves about what matters to them and what they're looking for, right? So, I mean, you're still going to have your knuckleheads out there. Can't help that. But, I'm just saying. Okay. What else? So, right, and Uranus is in the Saturn decan. Now, next month, Uranus will back up into the Mercury decan, which is good, but that's a whole other conversation. But for this month, Uranus is in Saturn decan, so there's this heavy Saturnine emphasis all month long that we've got to work through. Pluto's at 28 degrees. It will move to 29 next month as well, and we've got a whole bunch of other planets that will be changing direction next month also. So right now, believe it or not, November is kind of like the quiet interlude before it really starts to get colorful and things start really moving at a breakneck pace. Things that are really, really good this month, believe it or not, fun and games. Mating, dating, fun and games, things that are, entertaining and take your mind off of things and allow you to interact with other people in a positive way. Those are highly, highly favored this month and will be very, very successful. So if you are a party planner, or you're going to events, or you have the opportunity to go to events and do things, go. By all means, go. Let's see. And that is, honestly, that's pretty much going to be the end of the horoscope. It's a really fast horoscope this month. Sorry. Okay, so we've got a quarter moon on the 5th at 12 Leo. Not really worried about that. It's the couple days after, the 5th and 6th, that we're looking at. That will prove to be challenging and telling. So look for very serious Saturn involvement and considerations around this quarter moon on the 5th and 6th. On the 13th, we've got a new moon at 20 Scorpio. And that new moon is actually really sweet, but a little alarming as well. The new moon on the 13th will be setting up an opposition to Uranus. Hi! So at this particular point in time, power, really leveraging an issue and really flexing their muscles will be a real big deal around the 13th. But also, too, because it is trining Neptune while it opposes Uranus, this is an excellent opportunity for some, truth to come out, some real bare-bone facts and truths, and people get real honest and have their come to Jesus moment, or however you want to call it. So the 13th, that new moon is going to be a heavy hitter, but a good one. It will liberate you. If you work with it, that new moon will liberate you from all the falsehoods that have kept you trapped in just a web of non-productive deceit, lying to yourself, other people lying to you, you lying to them. We're going to wipe the word clean with that one. So that's a new moon to look forward to. The 20th, we've got the quarter moon at 27 Aquarius. And this particular quarter moon is not necessarily, right off the top of my head, it's not really doing anything amazing except, not true. It will set up a T-square with Mars. So add to your dates to circle on the calendar, November 20th. I'm so sorry. That is a T-square. Yikes! That is a T-square. No, it's not. What am I saying? Sorry. Nope, it's a square. It's not a T-square, it's a square. No, it is a T-square. Holy crap. Jesus. I can't. I know. Can you believe I'm an astrologer? The 20th is a quarter moon with the Sun and Mars together in Scorpio. The moon will be in Aquarius and Uranus will be in Taurus, setting up that T-square. I'm so sorry. That's a powerhouse configuration, not one I would mess around with. So with Sun, Mars, square moon opposing Uranus, I would look for some major look for some major ruptures, cracks, explosions, things that tear things apart, this rending things apart, like, you know what I mean? Like tearing things apart unexpectedly. Earthquakes, right, are an example with the bottom of the earth, like rends itself apart, sort of thing, cleaves, breaks open. So the 20th, that quarter moon, is definitely going to be like decision time and some major action that could result in things being split apart and forced apart or forced open. Doesn't have to be bad, but it will be huge, life-changing or game-changing and irrevocable. There will be no coming back from this. So keep an eye on that. If you are wondering how this is going to impact you, I would look for anywhere you carry late Aquarius, right? Because that's where you're going to feel it. And that's where a lot of this pressure is going to go. So for instance, if you know your houses, as an example, if you've got late Aquarius in the 7th house, it's your relationships with other people and or partnerships that are really going to take the beating, right? Because this is a rending. It's a breaking open or tearing apart, right? Now, the thing to remember is that when we break things open, we make space for things, right? Because when you loosen the bonds of something, when you break something open, you've created space. Well, if you've got space, that means there's some place to put new things. So it doesn't have to be bad. It does not have to be bad, but it will be important. So it come through, in that case, it would be your partnerships and your relationships, your one-on-one relationships, and also to the 7th house is house of open enemies. So you may discover who your enemies actually are. If it's your 10th house, just as an example, your 10th house is your house of profession, career, and public reputation and status. So if you have late Aquarius on the midheaven or near the top of your chart, you're definitely going to feel it in terms of attacks on your reputation, your status, your job, your career. So some unexpected breaks or rifts may be occurring there that could liberate you, or make space for new things. So you would need the houses to figure that out. Otherwise, go back to the planets in your chart. If you have planets and specifically in the late degrees, the last 3 degrees, 27, 28, 29, of the fixed signs, Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, planets anywhere in those signs in the last 3 degrees, 27 to 29, you'll be feeling this quarter moon T-square as well. And specifically, where that moon is. And of course, whatever that planet represents in your chart is where you're going to feel it, right? And so if you put a comment in the comment section, we can try and work it out there if I've got some time, but I can't get into it in the video. We're already way longer than I expected to be. And then when we get down to the 27th, we've got the full moon at 4 Gemini, which will be kicking off that Saturn, which went direct early this month. So the full moon at 4 Gemini, let me see what we got here, 27. The full moon at 4 Gemini will pull in Mars, and Saturn, all right, just what you wanted to hear. And that's the bulk of it. Now, luckily, we'll have Venus and Libra at this time as well. 27. Yes, and Venus will be approaching spike in Arcturus, so that's good. So the full moon at 4 Gemini, pulling in Mars and Saturn. So the full moon will be opposing Mars and setting up a T-square to Saturn. Oh my God. Boy, that's going to feel like a root canal. So it can lend itself to impulsive actions, but that's not recommended. Disciplined, calculated risks are the only things that are acceptable at this time. Also, too, people may find themselves being held accountable because remember, Saturn in Pisces has been all about accountability. may find themselves held accountable to higher standards. So they could be held accountable to what is considered the definition or the legal definition of something and how things are supposed to get done. They could find themselves getting held to a higher moral standard, depending on what your religion is and what your faith teaches and doesn't teach you. Conversation we're having right now. It's all about, when we get to the full moon, this full moon is going to be very much about being held accountable to higher standards. So if you're operating with the best of intentions, doing everything the way it's supposed to be, you've got nothing to worry about. But for those of you who are kind of bending the rules, or making up the rules as you go along, you may discover that this is a problem. And if you didn't know you were making up the rules as you were going along, you're about to find out. I'm just saying. Okay, so and that is the month of November. So it's going to be a little bit of, lumpy, bumpy, a lot of power plays all month long, which is not unexpected given what we're dealing with right now in the world. But there are some high points, again, the 5th, the 6th, the 20th, and the 27th. I want you to circle those days and be, a little more circumspect when you're dealing with people around those times. And also understand that right now, integrity and Saturn, this is all about Saturn this month. Integrity is where it's at and what it's all about. And if you're coming up short, the universe is going to let you know in no uncertain terms. And, anything that's happened that's not great is literally an opportunity to either make space in your life for something new and better, because these will be irrevocable breaks and splits and openings that are made, so that we can plant other things there. Or these will be opportunities given to you for you to be a better person, or to discover how to be a better person, or all this sort of stuff. So there you go. All right. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the comment section below. I'll try and answer when I get some time. I'm struggling. I'm doing a lot of sewing these days, so I don't have to watch the news. But I know we're going to get through it. Remember, progress is messy, and this is messy. We're making progress, and it is messy. But we've got to hold the line. And remember, even if you're not participating in something, you can still be a participant by being an enabler. So do not enable people who are operating with hateful, hostile hearts, minds, and attitudes. We've had plenty of that leading up to now. Like, we're finally on the end of it and just dealing with getting the backwash rinsed out right now. Okay. But, still they try. So let's not feed into this darkness by enabling hateful, hostile minds and attitudes, right? Because there's a difference between teaching somebody a lesson and then literally retaliating because you can, right? There's a fine line between those two. And once you crossed over that line, you've gone from teaching somebody a lesson to now just retaliating just because you can. Now you've become as much of or a bigger problem than they were, right? Because this is not how we teach our children either, right? Once you've done what you need to do to teach your child a lesson, you don't keep going just to be a retribution, kind of monster. That's abuse, right? And as adults, we have to sometimes remind ourselves that there are better ways to get a job done. Yes, Sam. All right, you guys. Never, ever forget you're awesome. You're not alone. You might feel like you're alone, but you're not alone, right? Just because you're not part of the vocal minority doesn't mean that you're the only person out there who's thinking and feeling the same way you do. We're going to get through this. But we gotta keep together, and we've got to get our minds right. All right. See you guys in December.